Hello and welcome back to Election Time News, your one-stop for political summations, poll reviews, nonpartisan predictions, and reviews and compilations on other political forecasters. Today is Tuesday, October 22nd, 2024, and today I'll be doing my second-to-last weekly update of the presidential election map. If you like content like this, make sure to subscribe to the channel. I have a goal of 500 subscribers by election night, so do me a favor and click on that bright red button below. I'll be sure to join the Discord. There's tons of election-related stuff, and you can get alerts when I upload. The link's in the description and on my YouTube homepage. It's also linked there. So now on the video here is a blank 2024 presidential map, and I'll be going in order of poll closing times and putting in my predictions based from my Google Sheet, and I'll also be showing off previous vote data and polling information on why I made my choices. Now, I'm not going to be staggering the results based on when the states are going to get called like I did in my video yesterday. I'm just going to be going in order from northeast to southwest. So, for example, to start things off, we have the 7 p.m. poll closing time. We're going to start off with Vermont. Vermont is obviously going to go Democratic. And then we have Indiana, Kentucky, South Carolina are going to go red, Virginia is going to go blue. So start things off here, Vermont, 100% chance, 31 of the is the most Democratic state in 2020. 100% chance it's going to go for Kamala Harris. That is going to be a safe margin. Virginia, technically there's a chance that Donald Trump will win it, but there's been some really good early vote data out of the state of Virginia that's been looking even better than 2020, so there's a very little chance that Donald Trump is going to even get close to winning the state, so there's absolutely going to be a safe margin there as well. However, the exact opposite can be said in South Carolina, 100% chance for Donald Trump to win, and that is also the case, almost even more so in Kentucky and in Indiana. Now, Indiana is interesting. It shifted very hard to the right in the past 2 decades. It went for Barack Obama in 2008 by 1%, but then it shifted very hard to the right, voted for Romney by 10.2, and then shifted hard to the right again, where it voted for Trump by 19.2 in 2016, and then shifted a bit to the left with the Nation, Trump 16.1, but is not going to be anywhere close to voting for Kamala Harris. Now, the first swing state is going to be Georgia, and that is going to go narrowly to Donald Trump. That is going to be a tilt margin for the former president, 57.5 to 42.5. This is boosted by early vote data, but basically what we're looking at here is its general incumbency factor, which is that it, has voted Republican for a very long time, all the way back to 1992 when it voted for Clinton by 0.6% against Bush, and then it didn't even vote for him again it voted for Dole over him in his re-election campaign in 1996. And it has voted heavily Republican ever since until, it started seeing some cracking in 2008, only 5.2, Romney 7.8, and then in 2016, only by 5.1, and then Biden managed to shift it by a whole 5.3 points to the left. But because of that incumbency and how far it shifted to the left, it's almost like a rubber band that's going to almost guarantee to snap back unless it can actually has some larger shift in the middle. But here, 1.1% lead, and there's been some good polling data, early vote data out of the state. So for that reason, it is going to be a Donald Trump victory by a tilt margin. Next is going to be the 8:30 p.m. poll closing times. We have Ohio and North Carolina. Ohio is going to be safe red, very good early vote data for Donald Trump here, 97.5 to 2.5. Technically, there's a chance that Kamala Harris will win, but it's essentially 0. And North Carolina, there's also been some good early voting data for Donald Trump, but things have actually been looking good for Kamala Harris as well, even though the polling itself hasn't been looking all so good for Kamala Harris here, as Trump does lead by 0.9 of a point and has basically led since, the end of August, according to DDHQ in the Hill here. There's been some relatively good early vote data for Kamala Harris. She may technically have a chance in the state, but as of right now, it is still going to Donald Trump. Then we have the 8 p.m. poll closing time. To start things off, we have the northeastern blue board over here. All are going to go safe except for Maine's statewide contest and, of course, Maine's 2nd Congressional District, which is going to go for Donald Trump, which will be certain. So looking here, going through this, Maine's statewide contest is 90-10. That is the highest certain rating. It's almost safe. It just had those 2 polls seemed really out of whack with each other. So I'm going to leave that certain. And there's been a bit more polling in New Hampshire. It seems to be more consistent that Kamala Harris is absolutely going to secure a victory there. Even her best one, that was relatively recent, has her ahead by 2. And then, of course, there's going to be these states that all voted by over 14 points for Democrats since, well before, since 2004. And throughout the Obama years and then through the Trump years as well, they voted for Democrats by over 14 points each, the lowest being the 14.9 margin for Clinton done in New Jersey in 2016, of course. West Virginia is going to go safe red. This is the second most Republican state in the country, only behind Wyoming. And then we have the second swing state called Pennsylvania. Will go for former President Donald Trump. This is a flip from last week when it was a toss-up state. And looking here, 52.5 to 47.5. Very, very narrow margin here, but it's because of this continued good-looking polling. The early vote data does look relatively good for Democrats, but it's just too early at this point to really have that outweigh anything too much. Trump has a 0.2 of a point lead, so very, very narrow, but Harris's lead has been declining since the middle of September, and it doesn't look like it's on any sign to turn around anytime soon. Trump will also get Tennessee, Alabama, Mississippi, Missouri, and Oklahoma. All of these are solid Republican states. The last time that any of them was competitive was Missouri back in 2008, when Barack Obama only lost it by 0.13 to McCain, and then it shifted to Romney plus 9.4, and then voted for Trump by 18.6 in 2016, and then again by 15.4 in 2020, so it has been completely out of reach since then. Illinois is going to go deep blue, absolutely going to go for Kamala Harris. It has just been consistently voting blue for a long time by more than 10 points since Bush won it in 1988 when he got a landslide victory against Dukakis after Reagan's, of course, famous sweeping victory in 1984. So it's going to go in the Democratic column. Kamala Harris is going to win it on election night. It's probably going to be called right away. And then lastly, we have the state of Florida. Now, Trump has, of course, a very strong home advantage here, and he is going to secure the state with a certain margin. 87.5% chance of winning the state. There's been more good looking data from mail-in ballots. Democrats aren't actually storming it like they should, so it's looking good for the Republicans out of this state. Next is going to be 8:30 p.m. That's going to be Arkansas. Not much clarification has to be done here. 100% chance, safe, not even any contest here. Next is going to be 9 p.m. We have New York, which is going to go for Kamala Harris. Michigan, which is going to go tilt for Kamala Harris. This is a swing state. It's the only one that I actually have going for Kamala Harris right now, 57.5 to 42.5. The early voting data looks very good, and she held a consistent lead for a long time. I'm not so sure about this recent Trump lead. It definitely means something, but Kamala Harris held a consistent lead for a long time throughout the months here, and I don't think that any polling change here is going to really, change that overall long period of Democratic strength in the state. Plus, demographics-wise, it's very Democratic leaning. It's just the most Democratic-friendly state out of the trio. And going back, of course, to the trio, I'm going to give Wisconsin to Donald Trump. This is another flip from last video, 52.5 to 47.5. That is, again, the closest. And so here I'm going to, of course, it's probably going to be closer to 2.25 or so. That's going to be based off of polling, which, of course, plummeted. Harris was doing relatively well in the state of Wisconsin, and then she was ahead by like 4.5 points, but now she's behind, basically in a tie, But the more recent polls basically have there's Bullfinch Group, which is a left-leaning pollster, Atlas Intel, which is a right-leaning one, and they're just confusing this cycle, so I'm just ignoring them. So based on that, RMG Research, Trump +1. This one, if you shift it to the right by 1, that's Harris +1. So those cancel each other out. So it's just been super close recently in Wisconsin, which isn't a good sign for the Harris campaign, considering how right-leaning of demographics that Wisconsin is, and that it is the most Republican-friendly out of the trio. Now, moving on from the Rust Belt trio that basically has already decided the election at this point, we will move to Minnesota, where Donald Trump's chances of winning are basically zero as well. 95-5 for Kamala Harris is going to be safe. And then moving on, we're going to have all of these states directly into safe. I don't think there needs to be much clarification there. Also going to be safe for Colorado and New Mexico. I did change these relatively recently. Colorado now has a 100-0 chance, as there has been no polling data out of there whatsoever. It has been not at all competitive, and here New Mexico is almost at 0 right here. The polling data has been too strong for Kamala Harris. Nebraska 2nd District I'll actually do next. 15-85, I think, is actually a bit much. I'm going to bump it down to 12.5 here, and that's going to be a certain margin. It's been getting lefter and lefter trending every single cycle. It went to Obama in 2008 by the slimmest of margins, and then voted for Romney in 2012, and then also voted for Trump in 2016, but then voted for Biden in 2020. So it shifted very hard to the left between 2016 and 2020, and it looks like it's going to do so again, going by an even further margin this time, even though the country as a whole will shift a bit to the right. Then we're going to look at Iowa here. Iowa 90-10. This is just based off of that one poll, again, that is a bit Democratic friendly, and it actually turns out that the early voting data actually isn't looking all that good for Republicans. It's not looking like there is going to be at all competitive. There's just technically a chance that she will win the state, but just based on that, I'm going to show that it definitely is a bit of influence as far as the odds of winning the state goes. Moving down to Texas, this is really, really close, just barely certain, almost safe for the former president, Donald Trump. He's almost secured on now to those 40 electoral votes, which means that he is now 7 away, which of course he will get with these 3, even if he doesn't win these 2. So Donald Trump has, of course, already won the election with Wisconsin and Pennsylvania. Now, next is going to be the state of Arizona, which, of course, then, Donald Trump will also win, getting him over 270 before the 10 p.m. poll closing states. So now we look up at Arizona, and we have 55-45 for Donald Trump. I'm actually going to bump this up to 57.5 just because of how good his early vote data is looking so far. Adjust the margins a little bit. I'll get into those in tomorrow's video. But it's really looking pretty good for Donald Trump in the state of Arizona. If there actually was any shock flip or shock hold here, that shock Democratic state that wasn't North Carolina, I think it would definitely be Arizona. His odds were the best in the state of Arizona on Polymarket for a long time, and overall here he's been holding steady at a 1.6 point lead. Now, there hasn't been any new polls either, but he's been holding a lead for a while, and it's actually been growing. So it's looking even better and better in the state of Arizona. Now, next is going to be the 10 p.m. poll closing. That's going to be Montana, Utah, and Nevada. Now, Nevada is the second swing state that Kamala Harris is going to win. We're going to look down here. Nevada, 42.5, 57.5. Now, the early vote data is basically like 50-50 between this. You could take it either way almost at this point. There really hasn't even been all that much in yet. So it's been a very close race. Now, Nevada is actually the only one out of these swing states that consistently underestimates Democrats. And it has been a very close race as far as that goes. Now, the page is not loading for some reason. I don't know why. Let me just try to force reload it here. There we go. Tied polling average, but for the past while, Harris again, kind of like the Michigan sort of thing here. I'm not really sure that it's gonna be able to undo this nice lead from the beginning of August, So just based on that, it's going to be blue. Plus, it has, of course, the incumbency factor here again. It's going to be 2.4. Now, incumbency factor is why I didn't move Pennsylvania and Wisconsin for such a long time, because, of course, they voted blue every single year from 2012 all the way back to 1988, when both Pennsylvania and Michigan voted for Bush. Then, of course, Clinton swept all three in 1992, which is also the last time that Georgia had gone blue. So, looking back over at our map here, then we have the 11 p.m. poll closings, which are going to be Idaho, and then the West Coast trio of Washington, Oregon, and California. That's a crucial 74 electoral votes for Kamala Harris, even though it doesn't matter at this point. And finally, to wrap things up, is going to be Hawaii, which is also going to be safe, and the state of Alaska. Alaska is 97.5 to 2.5, as technically there is a chance that Kamala Harris will win it. There's some interesting data coming out of there, but I don't really think that it's going to be consequential whatsoever, which means that this is going to be our final map. Donald Trump has won the election, 291 electoral votes to Kamala Harris's 247. This is going to be the first time that the Rust Belt Trio has voted separate from each other since 1988, which would be relatively consequential as far as that goes. And actually, it would be that Michigan is no longer going to be the rightmost out of the four. It's actually going to be the second leftmost. So, thank you all so much for watching. Tomorrow I'll be going over these margins and explaining these a bit. And currently I have it that there's a 52.5% chance that Donald Trump will win the election compared to Kamala Harris's 47.5% chance. So it is still very, very close. I just barely shifted it in Donald Trump's favor over the past few days due to the just consistently good polling data. And make sure to not miss the margins map tomorrow and the Senate update on Thursday. Thank you again so much for watching and have a fabulous rest of your day.